I always say that when our fans and our audiences put their kids to bed at night after watching Pinocchio or Dumbo or Little Mermaid, they're probably not going to tune into another animated movie. They want something for them.
When I was a kid, people used to tell me all the time that I would eventually lose my love for things like cartoons, video games, wrestling, and pretty much anything that I enjoyed in life at that time. Maybe out of defiance, I decided that I would challenge them by literally prioritizing animation as a career choice. Or maybe I just love it. When I think of that quote from Bob Chapek, while I don't think he meant any harm, it does make me recall Disney's slate of films over the last decade. Since 2014, we've gotten Big Hero 6, Zootopia, Moana, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Frozen 2, Raya and the Last Dragon, Encanto, Strange World, and Wish. In case you're wondering, yes, we're solely talking about Disney in this one. Of course, if you look at Pixar's slate since 2014, they've had way more hits than misses. But in regards to the mouse, while they've released some pretty good films over the last decade, it feels as though they haven't released anything special since
Um,
Now, what do I mean by last great film? While I am, of course, referring to the film's narrative, when we're talking about Disney movies, I'm also referring to its cultural impact. The protagonist, the music, the message, the villain's theme song. Granted, much of that isn't exclusive to Disney, but who cares? Moana is Disney at its best. You see, I'm a huge fan of Disney's formula, their princess formula in particular. You have your princess, she has some tragic backstory, a villain who makes her situation all the more difficult, a song that gives us an idea of her goal, some companions to help along the way, a love interest to save the day, and a happily ever after. The latter half of that has changed a bit, especially the love interest saving the day thing. They changed that up back in the 80s. But most of that formula is covered in Moana, yet differs from it in ways that truly makes the film stand out. After reading the art book, I walked away from it understanding just how much effort and time was put into creating a film that felt personal. The team was described by John Lasseter as changed after returning from their trip to the Pacific Islands. Getting to know the culture, understanding how they view the world, more specifically the ocean, how many believe the ocean divides us, the Pacific Islanders believe the ocean unites us in one huge region called Oceania. The thing is, Moana always felt like a film with heart behind it. It was a story with characters that wanted to find or remember who they are. Moana's people were voyagers, and she wanted to discover why they stopped and how to fix it. Maui needed to find who he was without his hook and accept himself as someone who matters. Moana also just felt like its own world, a place you wanted to go. Speaking of the setting, comparing it to the Disney films that came after it, it's not like those worlds weren't also appealing. But considering that out of the 6 movies that came out since Moana, the only film whose world truly feels memorable being Encanto's Family Madrigal is kinda disappointing. I recently watched Wish, a film that was supposed to celebrate 100 years of Disney, but somehow lacked the magic you're looking for in a Disney film. Sure, we won't get the same feelings for these movies like we will when we were kids, but seeing as Once Upon a Time did exactly that, something has to be said in that regard. I mean, while Once Upon a Time utilized all the Disney icons of the past, Wish certainly hinted at them, even going as far to give them a bit of a backstory. But it just didn't work. Whether it was the washed out colors of the environment, a rather bland protagonist, or a really distracting animation style, Wish quickly became the mascot for the lack of magic the current state of Disney has to offer. So when I hear that quote from Bob Chapek, a growing concern I have is that some of the higher ups at Disney believe that films can get away with the lack of substance since their viewers are younger, and adults aren't interested in animated productions. While we know that's not true, That doesn't really matter, unfortunately. You see, I'm the kind of guy to recognize when a film isn't for me. Of course, I believe there's a difference between that and just not being the target demographic. Even in this case, I don't believe I'm the target of many of these Disney princess films, but I still love them. Whereas My Little Pony, that just ain't for me. Many adults don't find animation appealing, and that's fine. In fact, let's disregard the adults for a second and think solely about the youth. Even better, recall the time when you were a kid. Couldn't you tell when a film was challenging you as a viewer? I know I could. I know when I saw Perfect Blue for the first time as a child, it scared me, but something about it seemed important. There were elements of the story I could pick up on, but even for those I couldn't at the time, something about it drew me in. Same with Attack on Titan. A pretty complicated story to grasp at first, but even as a child I knew that what I was watching was something incredible. If you want to take it back to Disney, look at The Lion King. While the most colorful and age appropriate of the three, I still knew there was something about its storytelling that was special enough that even adults around me could appreciate it. Contrarily, I could also tell that a film like Shark Tale, yes, I know, but seriously, even as a kid I could grasp that this was a film that wasn't looking to challenge me as a viewer, instead just mindless fun, and because of that, it was never that enjoyable for me. I'm sure you have other examples that can relate to this, and I should say as well, mindless fun isn't always a bad thing either. All this to say though, is that if a child can enjoy these films, most times without even knowing the full context of them until later in life, then why can't the adults who oftentimes absolutely understand the full context of these films, sometimes during their first watch? Pixar is a studio that challenges their viewers all the time, sometimes going as far as to killing a main character to go on a journey to discover life's purpose.
Whoa, whoa, sorry.
Simply put, everyone enjoys thought-provoking stories, whether they be real, computer graphics, or hand-drawn. Man, that reminds me, Moana was actually almost a 2D film. This would have been Disney's first traditionally animated film since Winnie the Pooh, and their first princess traditionally animated film since my favorite princess Disney movie, Princess and the Frog. Dang, that would have been great. But looking at these rough animations, I can see even more why Moana had such charm to it that brought me back to a time when I was young, and Disney was at their best. Could 2D animation be what makes these films so magical? Sure, but seeing as Moana did just fine without it, I think that devalues that narrative. 3D films can be magical on their own too. The Spider-Verse franchise, the Shrek franchise, the Toy Story franchise, the list goes on and on. Even with Frozen 2 being a big hit, I don't think the magic really returned to Disney until Encanto. But with Wish coming right after, it's like that magic went away again. Don't get me wrong, a downward slump from Disney eventually gave us the Disney Renaissance, so perhaps one day something like that will return. I don't know how soon, so far it seems as though they'll be going the sequel route. Moana 2, Zootopia 2, and Frozen 3 are the ones I've heard about, and Zootopia came out in 2016 alongside Moana, two of some of my favorite Disney movies. But man, no new hints at new original animated movies from them is kinda sad, especially in the traditional animation regard. While the star in Wish was apparently rumored to have been a possible hand-drawn character, only for that to be cancelled due to the limitations of 2D animation. Regardless, as I've gone way off topic, we as viewers always fear the worst when it comes to the future of entertainment placed in front of us by these mega corporations, who are only losing more and more competition. But with that, will Moana truly be Disney's last great film? I'll say this. There's always someone out there who has an idea that many of us couldn't even comprehend until we saw it on the big screen.
His name is Wally. After all these years, he's developed one little glitch. A personality.
While there's no guarantee these ideas will always be green-lit, there are of course those that do, and those ideas may be just as special. Disney will one day return to making instant classics, but for now, and hopefully forever, let's enjoy the greatness that studios like Sony Pictures Animation, DreamWorks, Studio Ghibli, and so much more have to offer. I myself will do even more to bring light to short films that aren't discussed enough, as there are some great ones out there. Thank you for watching this video. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and until next time.